Hi everyone, I hope everyone's doing well. Today we're going to talk about emotional storytelling. I want to preface this by saying I'm not a professional artist. I'm just somebody that loves storytelling. I'm also not a professional author, but some examples of emotional storytelling are Walt Disney's Snow White, The Wizard of Oz, we're going to focus on Snow White. I bought the Thomas Kincaid book and it's really very pretty. I use colored pencils, but it's very beautiful. It's never gonna look like how he painted it, but it's lovely. This video is a little long. It did take me 253 minutes to color this, but I do hope you enjoy this. So, emotional storytelling is where you tell a story based on emotions. There's no logic. You don't need logic in order to tell a good story. You can make people care about the characters in your story by conveying emotions that resonate with the audience. If the audience cares about your character, they will want them to succeed and overcome all obstacles. It's important for the audience to care about your character so that they want them to succeed. In Snow White, the emotional storytelling is done visually, including in Snow White herself. All the colors that Snow White wears can be found in nature. I always thought this was to draw attention to her natural beauty. Throughout the entirety of the movie, Snow is shown not only to be beautiful on the outside, but on the inside as well, which directly contradicts the emotional identity of the Queen. The Queen portrays envy. She, although beautiful on the outside, the envy and jealousy she feels for Snow make her ugly on the inside. This is shown in the movie right after she asks the magic mirror on the wall a question: who is the fairest of them all? To her surprise, the mirror informs her that Snow White is fairer than her. When she hears this, her entire demeanor changes, and the expression that was calm and collected before, it changes as her eyes get bigger, and this demonstrates she is angry about this. In response, she decides that this means that she must have Snow unalived. She cannot accept that someone has dethroned her as the most beautiful woman alive. Although the Queen is angry that the mirror has let her know that Snow White is more beautiful than her, and conducting this plan to have her unalived, the Queen stays elegant and does not lose her cool until she later finds out that Snow is still alive. Her appearance had stayed relatively the same until right before she finds out that she's still living, that Snow is still living. I always took this to mean she trained herself to stay calm in difficult situations, because this way, she stays very pretty. It's not until she absolutely loses her cool that her appearance changes. She turns herself into an old woman, which she calls a hag. Her voice also changes, and this would resonate with the audience feeling fear. And even when she laughs, her crow that she has is terrified. I mean, up until then, she thought the heart in the little box was Snow White's and not the boar's. And that was the exact moment that she decided to conduct this plan. On the other end, we see Snow White show empathy and kindness towards every living creature around her. She helped a little bluebird when he was lost, right before the knight was trying to unalive her, but he could not bring himself to do it. And he tells Snow White to run because her stepmother wants her unalived. When she starts running away, she runs into a forest. And as she is running through the forest, we see the forest turn dark. We see the trees attacking Snow. And this makes us feel fear for her. After a while of running, she breaks down and cries. When she lifts up her head, she sees the little bluebird that she helped earlier. Even though she's having what is probably the worst day of her life, she's happy to see him. After this, the animals lead her to a cottage in the woods. When Snow White sees the cottage, she knocks on the door, but there's no answer. She later finds that the door is unlocked and she looks inside. She notices that the home is messy, and this makes her think that children live there. She thinks they are orphans, and she has the idea that maybe if she cooks and cleans for them, they will let her stay. This is important because she tries to relate, because she's also an orphan. Well, she sings Whistle While You Work. She and the animals tidy up the house. After they are done, she heads upstairs and sees little bits. She assumes the children have silly names, and she's just so tired she falls asleep. After the dwarves get home and discover Snow White is in their home, she wakes up and acknowledges that they are not children but little men. They introduce themselves, and this is where we see that they are all named after their personalities. This could also be interpreted that they are named after a stereotype of older men. The only one that doesn't really fit this is Dopey. She asks them to let her stay, and despite Grumpy's protest, they agree to let her stay so that the queen cannot find her. She starts developing a friendship with these little men. Snow White never once calls them dwarves. She always calls them little men or by their name. The little men live in community in the cottage where they are letting Snow White stay, and she helps them cook and keep house for them in exchange. They begin to care about her, including Grumpy, who was so against letting her stay. The other little men only ever gave Grumpy a hard time because he is the woman hater. The men get along just fine. They accept each other with all their different personalities, including Dopey, who does not speak, and Grumpy, who is grouchy all the time. They don't get treated differently. Snow White is always herself, and she is both sassy and kind. She does not change even though her circumstances are hard. When the animals find out the queen, who is now disguised as the old hag, is trying to poison Snow, they go find the dwarves to warn them to help her and ask them to help her, lead them, I guess. Snow White's kindness has paid off here. She has friends that are willing to help her. Even Grumpy, the one that was so against letting Snow White stay, is leading the charge to go help her. They help chase the queen off, and she gets what she deserves and perishes as the old hag, in her words. Unfortunately, Snow already took a bite of the apple and fell into what the movie calls sleeping death. They build her a glass coffin, and they cannot bring themselves to put it underground. Everyone is crying. The animals are crying, everyone. And I do want to mention that this film was shown in 1937 in theaters, and this was the first full-length animated film, and there are documentaries where people say that there was like people crying in this scene, even adults. The audience really cared about this character, which I believe says a lot. I think Snow White gets a lot of hate because she's probably one of the more naive princesses, but that doesn't change her personality. I think that this is something very important, and there are people that are very optimistic and kind in real life, and I'm sure someone has at least one friend or family member that is like that they kind of they're very good for morale. They're very, just very sweet. The people like them. And I think that that's what this character is supposed to represent, that even though someone, like, you're having a hard time, optimism is usually a good thing. Another thing that I believe gets very looked down upon in this movie, that I don't know if people have recently watched, is the romance. I don't believe that the prince is just some random person to Snow. I don't think that's how it was portrayed. I mean, I understand that logically you haven't seen this person in the movie. Like, you don't see him much. But this was the first full-length animated feature. So it's not like now we have all this technology to introduce a lot of characters. This was revolutionary at the time. And I think as adults, people tend to use more logic, but that is not really what a fairy tale is. Fairy tales are supposed to, you're supposed to use your imagination. I mean, a lot of these fairy tales used to be folk tales that were just passed along verbally. And I really think you should rewatch the movie, because there's some stuff in there that I think would explain some stuff. So back to the romance in the movie. We are introduced to the prince when Snow White sings at the wishing well. In that song, she sings about how she is wishing for the one she loves to find her. The song doesn't say that she is wishing for a random prince to find her. She says, for the one I love. She already loves this man. I mean, she does run off in this scene, but she does look down at what she's wearing, and she's dressed in rags. And I think she runs off because she's embarrassed. I mean, the stepmother, the evil queen, has her wearing rags. But her being dressed in rags does not stop the prince from trying to speak to her. He even sends her a kiss with the dove. The dove is blushing. This man already loves this woman. That's what the visual is portraying. When we see the prince again, at the end, the visuals in the movie show us the seasons have passed. And Snow White still looks the same. The prince lifts up the glass and gives Snow White a kiss goodbye. Yes, a goodbye kiss. That was what this was. But Snow wakes up. She's happy to see him. I mean, that is what she wished for after all. She says goodbye to the little men and leaves with the prince. The kingdom is in the sky. The princess got her wish, and now she's a queen. And I do think this gets wildly misinterpreted, but I think it's supposed to show, like, the songs are important. You don't just wish for the one you love if you met this person right after this song. I mean, this was limited, I think, in one of the first drafts. They wanted the prince to have more story time, I guess is the best way to put it. But they didn't know how to animate men. Like, this was something that was still being discovered. And I think that's the scene where Snow White is dancing with the dwarves, kind of how it would have looked, but that's different. um, these are my opinions on why the remake failed. I really did not like it. I think it made me angry a few minutes in. And Snow White is not my favorite princess, but I do think the fairy tale aspect of it is important. I mean, in the original, there's really no kiss. It's not a thing in there. It's more of an accident for how she gets saved, but I guess that's for another video. The original portrays Snow White as someone very innocent, very naive, very new to the world, but that doesn't stop her from being kind. In this new one, Snow White is not naive or scared in the movie, but they still try to portray her as such. She even has a song where she's having an identity crisis, but it's not believable because she's already all those things that she's singing about. So it just doesn't work. I didn't care about the character as much as I did in the original. The romance between her and the prince, who I guess is now a bandit, is not believable. I mean, there's even a song where he belittles her and tells her that she has princess problems, even though he knows that she was a prisoner. There's a scene in the movie where she catches him trying to rob bread. I think it's bread. And he thinks that she's a slave, like a prisoner in the castle. And he knows that she's kind of a prisoner. She's like dressed how she's dressed. The queen this is how she's running the country, I guess. So it doesn't make any sense to have the prince or the bandit tell her that she has princess problems when he knows that she's having a hard time. But I guess it works out. There's not much chemistry in my opinion, but I don't know if that's really like the actor's fault. I feel that this is just how the story is told, which I really, really dislike. Okay, the portrayal of the little men. The little men are portrayed as man-children who don't get along even for a second. I really, really hated this. I mean, I understand that in fairy tales, strictly speaking about fairy tales, dwarves are kind of seen as magical creatures, which in this movie, very uncanny valley, or however they tried to portray the dwarves, I mean, I guess it reminds you of Polar Express. It's really odd. I do think they could have cast little people. I do think that they deserve more representation. I do think that some stuff is taken out of context, but I really do think that those actors deserve a chance to, have a spot. I know that was something that people were very upset about, and I think that there should be more ways that they're able to act, all these actors, like more representation, more characters they can play. I don't necessarily think that they should only play, magical creatures, because they are real people. But back to the story. I I don't like that they portrayed them as man children. I don't like that they took away the personal growth for Grumpy. Instead, I guess this storyline is given to Dopey, where they make him speak because I guess he's bullied by the other little men, which did not happen in the original. That was mostly given to Grumpy because he was against Snow White being there and everyone else wanted her to stay. And they all accept him. They all accept each other in the original. And in this new one, I just can't. I didn't like it. I mean, in the original, Dopey already knew how to whistle. I mean, if you wanted to change his name, sure. He didn't have to be called Dopey. But you can't. I don't necessarily think this was progressive. I see what they were going for. But I feel that just. Not everyone who is nonverbal has confidence issues. Some of them just are that way. And we should accept them the way they are. Another thing with the little men is the little men work in a mine. And when you see that they're coming home, it's already dark. So that's why it's messy. That's why their house is messy, because they work long hours from the morning to night. In the remake, instead of Snow White being led by the animals to the cottage and trying to see, first knocking if there's someone there, and then discovering that everything's kind of small and it's very, very cute, thinking, I'm gonna try to cook and clean and earn my place here. She kind of just breaks an interest. And she sleeps there. And then when she gets there, she just kind of bosses them around. And that, I know, isn't, like, I don't feel that was true to her character, because I don't know anyone who would ever do that in a situation like hers. Like, they just break and enter, fall asleep, and then tell them to clean. I mean, I understand that they should be cleaning, but you're the one needing a place to stay. She doesn't really ask them if she can stay either. She just kind of takes over. Another thing that I do want to mention is they changed her voice. Her very, very soprano voice. I know that that's not what's very popular now with people, but when this movie came out, that was what was popular. I mean, they even used the same style of clothing, I think. Like the shoes, the long skirt at the bottom. And that was what the style was in singing. It's very operatic, very soprano, and even her voice, it's high pitched. It's I think they're trying to portray that she's very, like, innocent, very kind, very optimistic. It's a very happy tone, and the person that kind of played her voice, I think it was Adriana Castelletti. I might have said that wrong. I'll put it in here. She was able to do that with her voice, and I don't think people with that type of voice get cast a lot. And I have friends that are they have this type of voice, which is like it's very high pitched. It's very operatic when they're speaking, when they're singing. I don't think it's fair if somebody is able to make that voice, like to hit those notes, that they wouldn't cast someone like that. But I mean, I guess Disney wants to go away from that. But I do know that these people sometimes get told a lot, oh, you can't really portray anger, you're too cute and you're too loud or too high pitched, you sound too cute. And I really hate that, because I think even the girl who played Snow White in the remake, I think she can hit those notes. That she's able to do that. I mean, she was in a ton of musicals, and I think she does have a very wide range of vocals. So it just really, I feel it goes against the character, because they were trying to portray the same type of story, but it really felt like there was two different stories here. Like, the king never ever comes back, even though there's like there's so many scenes where you would think that you're coming back, but no, instead he just never does, and he is actually not alive anymore. And it just doesn't work. One of the other things that I really did not like is how the evil queen is portrayed. I mean, I do understand that Gal Gadot is very pretty. I do understand that. I understand that she looks like Wonder Woman and that a lot of people like how pretty she is. But I did not like this. Her portrayal, or the portrayal they told her to act as, it's very over the top. It's very like, this rose is delicate and this diamond is not, and it's just, I don't understand. The original queen was very elegant, although she was very evil, although she wants, like, she asked for a heart in exchange to know that the person that she was trying to have unalived was, before she turns into the witch or old hag that she calls herself, before you kind of see her personality on the outside, she's very calm. And the way that they wrote this character in the movie is just very over the top, very, she's not, like, I don't understand. There's a little scene in the movie where she's like, well, you were Jonathan, I think the love interest, I think that's his name, that's the bandit's name. She's like, she has a guard have him, like, tie him up outside, and then she's like, well, he has to stay there until he, like, starves. And then she doesn't do things as evilly, I guess. So I'm very confused. And I do think that both of the women playing these characters are very pretty. But it just felt like I was watching two different movies. They were trying to make different movies. And I don't understand what the bandits have to do with anything, because they're not really a big part of the story, other than they're like there, I guess. And as someone who loves fairy tales, folk tales, and storytellings, some of these remakes have been hard to stomach. Well, I understand they are not trying to make the same movie, It does feel like they're just trying to make a quick buck on people's nostalgia. There are better ways of remaking a story. They kept so many pieces of the original and tried to modernize it, but somehow the original was still better, even though it came out in 1937. The pieces that are kept are better for emotional storytelling. But instead they tried to use logic, which still does not work in something like this. Because I guess when you're a kid, it's easier to have more imagination, and I feel like that gets lost. This isn't really, if you're going with the original tale, if you're gonna keep the elements that were kept, you can't use logic. You have to be creative and show a better way to make people understand that this is a love story. You can't have somebody belittle the main character and kind of be a jerk and then be like, oh my gosh, they're in love. That's not how it works. If you wanted to make a Robin Hood meets Tangled, then do that. I really did feel that they were going, that's where they were going, where the bandits are they were supposed to be working for the Lost King, but they don't help anyone. They don't do anything. Jonathan is not Robin Hood, and he tries to be Flynn Rider, but it doesn't work. And then Snow White is not naive enough for the audience to believe that she is blind to the cruelty of the world she's living in. She sees it and she speaks up. There's a scene where she tells the queen that maybe she could be kinder to her people, and nothing really happens. Like, how am I supposed to believe that she's naive and she's never seen the world if she's speaking up? How am I supposed to believe that she's having an identity crisis if she's already doing this? Her optimism is also gone, which kind of goes back to maybe that's why the voice changed. I'm not sure. They keep bringing up hope in this movie, and I lost hope 10 minutes in, which is really kind of ironic, seeing as the time this movie took place was, I think, during when the US was going through depression. And a character like this does show optimism, and optimism gets you through hard times, right? But it's just, why are you telling me to have hope? Like, I don't understand. And then at the end, I think that she wins her people back by remembering their names. And I don't get it. Because you could have said their names way before. This movie is super long. I mean, if you like it, I'm very, like, I'm glad you liked it. But I did not, and I didn't know until I watched this movie how important storytelling was to me. You cannot make a character like this if you're trying to portray the same character, if you're still keeping the elements that made Snow White in the original Walt Disney version. I mean, there could have been so much more. I mean, I would have liked to see, like, if they wanted to go the Ghibli route, where I believe Studio Ghibli thinks people are fundamentally kind. And every villain I've seen in a Ghibli movie has been very complex. They're a product of their surroundings, of their life. If you had made the queen be a peasant somehow, that her magic is tied to her beauty, then I understand. Then that's why the king falls in love with this woman as soon as she walks in. I mean, his wife has just passed away. And then he's just like, okay, I'm gonna marry this random lady that just showed up and she made me a flower. If you wanted to focus on the queen and have me think that she thinks that her self-worth is purely based on her looks, then I would have watched that. If you wanted to make the mirror a handheld mirror that she carries around, okay, I understand that. If you wanted the bandit to be Robin Hood and he's helping people and the king is actually still very much alive and is working for them, trying to get back the utopia, oh, that would have been a good movie. I just don't... You can't keep the same elements and expect people to respond the same. I don't think I have ever been more upset about how a remake has basically tarnished the original. And I'm not against retelling a story. I love when stories are retold, where you see how things have changed throughout time. But you cannot, it has to be good. And I do understand that people like this, and I do understand that a lot of people are like, it's for children, but I even feel that's a little disrespectful to children. I don't think that they have enough media now or enough places to go like we did as children. Don't treat your audience like they're dumb. Adults, children are not dumb. They pick up on things, and sometimes I feel that emotionally they're smarter than some adults. Do not treat everything in storytelling like it has to be logical, because there are very, very good movies that are storytelling that is emotional, and I feel like there should be more. Anyways, thank you so much for listening to me rant about this.